Tonight we embark on a journey to investigate a rumor that's electrified the internet and captured the attention of millions across the globe. In an age where information travels at lightning speed, even the most outlandish claims can gain traction overnight, blurring the line between fact and fiction. The latest buzz: a claim that China has allegedly offered the Philippines a staggering $15 trillion in exchange for its claims in the West Philippine Sea, a sum so enormous, it's almost unimaginable. To put that into perspective, $15 trillion is more than the annual GDP of most countries combined. It's a figure that, if true, could reshape not just the Philippines and China, but the entire geopolitical landscape of Southeast Asia. Such a deal would upend decades of maritime disputes, redraw boundaries, and potentially alter the balance of power in the region. As the rumor spread like wildfire, it ignited heated debates online and offline, feeding anxieties about global power dynamics, national sovereignty, and the true cost of territorial claims. People everywhere began to question, could a nation's sovereignty really be bought? And if so, what does that mean for the future of international relations? This rumor suggests a world where economic might can buy what military force and international law have long struggled to resolve. It challenges our understanding of diplomacy, negotiation, and the value of national identity. But before we accept this story at face value, we have to ask, is there any truth to it? Where did this rumor originate, and who stands to gain from its spread? Our mission tonight is clear: to separate fact from fiction, to dig beneath the headlines, and to uncover the real story behind this viral claim that has everyone talking. We'll trace the roots of the South China Sea dispute, exploring its complex history, the competing claims, and the lives of those most affected by the ongoing tensions. We'll also investigate the origins of the $15 trillion figure, where it came from, how it spread, and whether there's any evidence to support such an astronomical offer. And finally, we'll examine the realities shaping the region today: the economic interests, the military maneuvers, and the diplomatic efforts that continue to define the West Philippine Sea. So let's dive in together and discover what's really at stake in this high-stakes geopolitical drama, because the truth, as always, is far more complex than any rumor. The South China Sea is a vital artery for global trade, carrying trillions of dollars worth of goods every year. Its waters are not only crucial for commercial shipping but also for the energy supplies that fuel economies across Asia and beyond. Beneath the surface, the sea is believed to be rich in oil, natural gas, and abundant fisheries, making it a highly coveted region for economic and strategic reasons. Yet, this economic lifeline is also a flashpoint of overlapping claims, where the interests of multiple nations collide. The South China Sea has become a stage for frequent maritime standoffs, with patrol vessels from different countries shadowing each other and tense encounters unfolding on the open water. These confrontations are not just about territory, they are about national pride, security, and access to vital resources. The Philippines refers to its claimed waters as the West Philippine Sea, grounding its position in international law, specifically the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. This treaty, signed by over 160 countries, defines nations' rights and responsibilities in the world's oceans, including exclusive economic zones that stretch 200 nautical miles from a country's coast. For the Philippines, UNCLOS is the legal backbone of its claim, providing a framework for asserting sovereignty and protecting its maritime interests. China, meanwhile, asserts a sweeping claim over nearly the entire South China Sea through its so-called nine-dash line. This claim is rooted in historical usage, with Chinese maps from the 1940s depicting the area as part of its territory. Chinese officials argue that their fishermen and traders have used these waters for centuries, and that this long history justifies their expansive claim. However, the nine-dash line cuts deep into the exclusive economic zones of other coastal states, creating a patchwork of overlapping claims. These overlapping claims are not limited to China and the Philippines. Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan all assert their own rights to parts of the sea, each citing historical records, legal arguments, and economic needs. The result is a complex web of competing interests, with each nation seeking to protect its sovereignty and secure access to the sea's resources. Diplomatic meetings among ASEAN countries have tried to ease tensions, but consensus remains elusive. The dispute escalated dramatically in recent years as China began constructing artificial islands atop reefs and shoals, transforming them into military outposts with runways, radar systems, and missile batteries. This large-scale militarization has alarmed neighboring countries and drawn international concern, as it shifts the balance of power and raises the risk of conflict in one of the world's busiest waterways. In 2013, the Philippines took a bold step by challenging China's claims at the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague. After years of legal proceedings, the tribunal issued a landmark ruling in 2016, declaring that China's 9-dash line had no legal basis under international law. The decision was hailed as a victory for the rule of law and for smaller nations standing up to powerful neighbors. However, China rejected the tribunal's ruling outright, refusing to recognize its authority or findings. Chinese naval patrols continued in the disputed areas, and the region was left in a state of legal limbo and practical uncertainty. The international community called for restraint and dialogue, but the fundamental disagreements remained unresolved. Today, the South China Sea remains a flashpoint, with recent confrontations between Chinese and Philippine vessels highlighting the ongoing risks. The unresolved conflict, rooted in history and law, continues to shape the region's security landscape and sets the stage for the tense standoffs we see unfolding now. Scarborough Shoal, Panatag to Filipinos, Huangyandao to the Chinese, is the epicenter of the dispute. Located within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, it's a lifeline for local fishermen and a strategic prize for both nations. In 2012, a standoff saw China seize control after a failed mutual withdrawal, blocking Filipino access ever since. The 2016 tribunal ruled China's blockade unlawful, but Beijing ignored the decision. Scarborough Shoal now stands as a symbol of defiance, where international law collides with raw power. For the Philippines, it's about sovereignty and survival. For China, it's about regional dominance. The shoal remains a dangerous flashpoint, with tensions simmering just below the surface. So where did the $15 trillion rumor come from? The figure actually originated in U.S. economic forecasts, not in any China-Philippines negotiation. It referred to projected investment in the American economy, not a secret deal over the West Philippine Sea. Through social media misattribution, the number was twisted into a sensational geopolitical rumor. No credible source has ever reported such an offer from China. This is a textbook case of how misinformation can hijack real numbers to fuel viral myths. While the trillion-dollar rumor is fiction, the real story unfolding at Scarborough Shoal in 2025 is far more complex and consequential. This remote atoll in the South China Sea has long been a flashpoint, but this year, China's actions have taken the dispute to a new level, drawing global attention and concern. China's real actions at Scarborough Shoal in 2025 are anything but imaginary. In recent months, a significant buildup of Chinese Coast Guard vessels has been observed, with ships forming a near-constant blockade around the shoal. This show of force has effectively limited access for Filipino fishermen and raised alarms among neighboring countries. In a high-profile press conference, Beijing announced the creation of a massive nature reserve at Scarborough Shoal, a move that was broadcast widely across state media and framed as a bold step for environmental stewardship. Chinese officials claimed that the new reserve was designed to protect fragile marine ecosystems and promote biodiversity, insisting that environmental protection was their only motive. They highlighted plans for scientific research and conservation patrols, painting the initiative as a model for responsible ocean management. But the Philippines and international observers quickly saw through the rhetoric, viewing the reserve as a pretext for tightening China's grip on the disputed waters. Filipino fishermen, who have relied on the shoal for generations, suddenly found themselves blocked from their traditional fishing grounds, sparking protests and diplomatic outcry. Critics were quick to point out China's history of environmental damage in the South China Sea, including large-scale dredging and destruction of coral reefs to build artificial islands. Many argued that the so-called nature reserve was less about conservation and more about consolidating control. Legal experts and international analysts called the move a legal smokescreen, designed to give a veneer of legitimacy to China's expanding presence. They warned that such tactics could undermine international law and set a dangerous precedent for other disputed regions. By declaring a reserve, China could now justify detaining fishermen and policing the area under the guise of conservation. Reports soon emerged of Chinese patrols intercepting Filipino boats, confiscating catches and even detaining crews, all while citing environmental regulations. The United States and several other countries swiftly condemned the move, calling it destabilizing and a violation of international norms. Diplomatic statements and press briefings highlighted the risk of escalating tensions and the potential for conflict in the region. Many saw the nature reserve as another calculated step in China's incremental expansion, using environmental claims to mask strategic ambitions. The proposal not only raised tensions but also prompted military buildups and standoffs at sea as regional powers scrambled to respond. As the world watched, the situation at Scarborough Shoal pushed the region closer to confrontation, with the future of the South China Sea hanging in the balance. 2025 has seen a dangerous escalation at Scarborough Shoal. The Chinese Coast Guard intensified its blockade, using water cannons and aggressive maneuvers against Philippine vessels and fishing boats. In August, a chaotic encounter led to 2 Chinese ships colliding while blocking a Philippine resupply mission. China responded by formalizing its blockade, vowing to intercept any Philippine vessel near the shoal. The U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty now looms over every standoff, raising the stakes of each encounter. Filipino crews face daily risks, defending their livelihoods and national pride against overwhelming odds. The threat of a major incident and wider conflict has never been higher. The conflict's impact ripples far beyond the sea. Politically, it's hardened Philippine resolve and deepened ties with the U.S., while making compromise nearly impossible. Economically, coastal communities have lost vital fishing grounds, plunging thousands into hardship. The dispute threatens global trade routes, raising costs and uncertainty for international shipping. Socially, it's forged a sense of unity and resistance among Filipinos, but also anxiety and hardship for fishing families. Regionally, Southeast Asian nations are caught between opposing China and protecting their own economic interests. ASEAN remains divided, struggling to present a united front. The standoff tests not just Manila and Beijing, but the strength of regional institutions. Experts on both sides reveal the depth of the divide. In Manila, Professor J. Batong Bakal calls China's nature reserve a strategic ploy to justify arrests and cement control. He sees it as part of a broader campaign to undermine Philippine rights and international law. In Beijing, Yang Xiao defends the reserve as ecological stewardship, blaming Filipino fishermen for environmental damage. He frames China as a responsible power, accusing the Philippines and the U.S. of provocation. These opposing narratives, defense of sovereignty versus protection of territory, highlight the near-impossible challenge of finding common ground. The gulf in perception makes diplomatic resolution elusive. The $15 trillion rumor is a distraction from a much deeper crisis. The West Philippine Sea dispute is a clash of law, history and power, not a problem money can solve. 2025 has shown the conflict is live, dangerous, and with global implications. The risk of miscalculation and escalation is real, with Filipino fisherfolk already paying the price. Upholding international law and sovereignty is a test for the world community. The future depends on informed citizens, resilient communities, and persistent diplomacy. The story isn't about a check, it's about the enduring fight for justice and peace. The quest continues.